Handmade Christmas ornaments are great gifts, and they do very well at holiday craft fairs. In this video, I'm going to be forging a simple ornament that is folded in half and welded on each end, and then twisted. And here I'm working with some 1/8 inch square stock that's cold rolled material. I'm going to measure out 10 inches and cut it off the bar with a cold chisel. I found that 10 inches works fairly well for this. Less than 8, the ornament is too short, and more than 12, it's kind of long and unwieldy. So here I'm starting to cut. I'm dropping things. You don't want to cut all the way through. You just want to deeply score the material, and this thin material breaks really easily. Dropped it on the floor for the first time. Now I'm going to measure and find the center, and then I'm going to fold the material in half. With this really thin 1/8 inch material, you can do that by hand fairly easily. If you're doing this with quarter, you may need to heat it up first. So I'm folding it in half, and then I'm going to tap it together with my hammer. Whenever you get it bent, you want both sides to be parallel and just sitting alongside of each other. That makes the welding a lot easier. If they cross over each other, you can take heat and open them up if you need to. You just really want that to be parallel for welding. Here I've fluxed the material and heated it to a welding heat. I'm going to start welding. And I start on the end that is not the bent end, the open end. And with this thin material, you really only get a couple of blows before it gets too cold to work with. So there, I brushed it off. I'm going to reflux and take another welding heat. You can take 2 or 3 heats to get a good weld here. And you want a good weld because when you twist, if it's not a good weld, you will split. And don't get greedy and try to go too far. You really want a good weld. This is my last welding heat for this end. And I'm going to go down to, not to a point. You don't want a really sharp point on an ornament. Then I'm going to round up the material. I just like the way the round looks. On the ends of the ornament, you can do square or you can do round. Anything that looks good to you. Drop it several times in this one. Now I'm going to work on welding the bent end of the ornament. Again, you can only hit it a few times before you lose the heat when you're out of the welding heat. So I get the weld set, then I'm going to reflux, reheat, and go back to it. And that seemed to weld fairly well in 2 heats, so now I'm going to draw it down to a point and then round it up. At this point, you're going to want to clean everything up really well. It's a little harder to clean once you've done the twist, so I like to hit it with a butcher block brush or a wire brush and get any of the flux or anything else that's stuck on it cleaned off. Now I'm going to turn the eye on the end of the ornament. This 1/8 inch material is really flexible when it's hot, so you do notice lots of the bars moving. So what I'm going to do here is take another heat, and I'm going to use a pair of scrolling tongs and tongs that I'm holding the piece with to straighten that eye up. Get everything in line with the main shaft of the ornament. It's usually operations like this where you find out whether or not your weld was good. And if it wasn't welded well, it will split apart and let you know. Getting everything lined up, making sure it looks good now, will ensure it looks good in the end. Now we're ready to do some twisting. I do this in the vise. I'm going to clamp the eye in the vise. If you notice, I accidentally grabbed way too far down on the ornament, and I'm missing a bunch of the bar for twisting. So I'm going to have to take another heat after this and finish the twist, which is sometimes difficult to get it even. You really want to grab it in the right place and do it all in one heat. I'm just grabbing from the other end with the vise. Make sure you twist the same way. I'm just trying to twist and make those all even. And here's another mistake. Hitting this with a butcher block brush when it was still hot, it definitely bent it. So I'm going to have to straighten everything out and try to get it even again. I'm just going to do that in the vise, just clamping it. If you have a rubber or a rawhide or a wood mallet, you could use that on the face of the anvil and smooth it out too. That's what the twist should look like. And a lot of times I'll see people just do an oil finish on ornaments like this. What I like to do is get them brushed fairly clean, and an oil finish is very dark and it gets lost inside of a Christmas tree really easily. So I like to paint mine. I either use silver or gold most of the time, but white can also look good. And in this case, I'm going to do gold paint. And there's our completed ornament with the gold paint. But I've always found that handmade ornaments like this look a lot better if you make a hook for them rather than using the generic green wire hangers. So I've got some thin copper wire here and some wire cutters and a couple of pairs of jeweler's pliers that I got in an art supply store. And I did a couple of experiments, and I'm marking off 4 inches of the copper wire. And I'm going to turn an eye on each end of it and just make an S hook with my jeweler's pliers. This other set of pliers here has a few different radii, so I can just bend it around the same die and get the same curve on each end. And you can just leave it like that with just a plain S hook, but I also like to flatten out the curve some. It just gives it a different look. That's our completed hook. We can put it on our ornament and see how it looks. That's ready to hang on a tree. I hope you enjoyed this simple ornament.